The following broadcast may contain explicit language and adult themes. Viewer discretion is advised. The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the hosts, talent, and guests, and do not reflect the opinions, views, and standards of Pyro Media Enterprises, affiliates, subsidiaries, or its members.
Hey, happy Friday, Junior. I'm going to say, hello, I need to start over. Back up. Hey, everybody. Happy Friday, Junior. It's Nicole D. Vick. You are here on Nicole D. Vick Live. My name is Nicole D. Vick. I done said that probably 3 times already. So I don't know what's wrong with me today, but it's going to be all right. We just going to keep talking, and it's going to be all good in the hood. As you know, every second Thursday, I go live and bring folks in and have important conversations, and sometimes maybe not so important conversations, fun stuff. But today we're going to kind of have a really important conversation that I will admit I haven't been keeping track of. And so I want to kind of get caught up, and I brought on 2 experts to really help me figure this out. Now, let me say this. I think one of the most important things a person has is control over their own body. Unfortunately, we have entered a time where this isn't true for everybody. Women, people that have children who have a uterus are having their choices regulated, and it's downright dangerous as far as I'm concerned. This episode is designed to be a very thought-provoking conversation that delves into the multifaceted issues of abortion, reproductive health, public health, healthcare access. We're going to talk about all the complexities, the social issues, the ethical issues. I'm not really big on politics in that way. I don't know, but I know I'm sure Dr. Kalfani has some aspect of that to talk about. But we're going to talk about this from a variety of lenses. So hopefully this will be an informative, thoughtful conversation, one that will inform you, help you figure out what you need to do to help women or people with reproductive organs, uterus, whatnot, have the right to control their bodies. So let me just jump on in. I'm gonna have Nosa come join me, and then we finna bring in our guest. Come on, Dr. Kalfani. Hey.
I guess it would be helpful if I unmuted myself. Hey,
it would be. I love your shirt. Can everybody see her shirt? All the things.
I figured if we're gonna be talking about it, I might, I'll wear my shirt. One of them anyway.
See, you got a collection. I need to catch up. I want one. Where you get that shirt from?
Oh, good question. And I am drawing a blank. But I know I can quickly find the link.
Okay.
I also have the sweatshirt. So There's a sweatshirt too. So I also ordered a sweatshirt. But you know me, I spend lots of money on t-shirts with sayings. And I may at the commercial break, I actually may put on my sweatshirt that says the University of Bodily Autonomy. So I actually may put that on before the time is up.
Outfit changes throughout the Nicole D. Vick Live episode. That'll be a first for us. I would love that. So how have you been? You've been busy and everything. And so how's life?
Life is good. I mean, what? So I've been in my new role as co-CEO for about 7 months now. So that has been It's been fun. It has been lots of learning, lots of new conversations, lots of new learning. And because of the topic, this is something we talk about all the time, right? And so access to equitable, accessible, affordable, essential healthcare is key. This is important to me because I think access to abortion is access to healthcare, right? And it should be seen that way. Folks shouldn't be shamed. Folks shouldn't be criminalized for accessing a service that has a huge impact on their lives, right? Decisions they make, how they want their families to be, right? And so it is an essential health service in my point of view, and not being able to make a choice about having children or not to have children really sets up lots of different things. And so we have to think about the intersections of that, because you have to think about the economic impacts that relates to that, you know, educational dynamics that may be a part of that, where you live, what your trajectory is in your career. All of those things come into play, and taking away or limiting or restricting access just makes an individual's decisions about their futures, their lives, their families even more difficult when we think about where we are in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And it's crazy because, and if I'll say this and then we can move to the next topic. Even getting access to it, okay, well, let's back up to when I was a teen, 17, 16. My boyfriend, even access to condoms and birth control was hard. Those things also can have that same kind of impact, just mess up a whole, somebody's whole life path. And so I don't know what this thing is about trying to create barriers on this type of healthcare for people. I don't even understand. I mean, well, I kind of understand. I'm gonna take that back. But it's like, dang, something that could really free up a lot of people to make certain kinds of decisions and choices for their lives that they think is best for them. Why block that? Why make it hard? Why lock condoms up? Why do these things that really just kind of create these barriers for folks to do what they need to do? And it's really, really, really disheartening to see some of these things that we had come so far on sort of literally be rolled back as if nope, take it away. I saw somewhere, and maybe we'll get into this when Jamila comes on, but I'll say it. And then where they were talking about potentially if a woman even miscarries, she could be charged with a homicide. And I was like, I don't know if that's true or if that's a rumor, but have you heard that?
I've heard similar stories and things, and folks who are anti-abortion throw all types of things in the, against the wall to see if they're going to stick. I mean, we have, very conservative judges across the country now that are really opening the door for so much to happen. I am one of those folks who say Roe was the floor and not the ceiling. And so even though it was a lay of the land, and for so many other folks before us and fought so hard to get that as a law, we still had issues with people accessing, right? Depending on where they were, right? And because of bans and restrictions. And so, but with that, the overturn of Roe based on the Dobbs decision, that just opens the door for attacks in other areas, right? Yeah. So all the things that are coming out as it relates to in cases like in Texas and other places, where adolescents are having a harder time to access confidential sexual and reproductive health services, right? So this brings up issues of confidentiality, right, and privacy. So what is private these days, right? You also had issues that are going to come up or starting to have conversations as they relate to trans folks. I mean, look at what we're seeing. I'm trying to ban drag shows. I'm like, what has a drag queen done to anybody? I'm like, it's like, that's joy, that's laughter, that's fun. But those are the types of things. It just opens the door for more of this kind of thinking that doesn't allow people to really then start to make choices that make sense for them.
Yeah. Very, very scary. So last month I had Dr. Nurse on, our good friend Jamila, the doctor nurse, and we had a really good conversation about all sorts of things. We talked about syphilis, we talked about maternal mortality, we talked about a lot of things. So I want to bring her back on because I want to hear her perspective as well. And I think the three of us, I'm like, wait, how many of us is it? One, two, the three of us have a good conversation. Somebody in the comments mentioned that they liked your shirt, so we're gonna make sure we get the link.
Yes, I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna get that link up. Yes,
and put it in the comments. All right, let's bring on Dr. Nurse Jamila. Woo
woo. Dr. Nurse.
Hey. Hey, oh, and before we start, was it International Nurses Week or is it National Nurses Week?
It's National Nurses Week.
Yay! And I left Dr. Nurse a post on Facebook. I was like, you my favorite nurse.
Thank you. I did see that and I appreciate it. Shout out to all the nurses out there.
Yes, I mean, public health nurse extraordinaire, now PhD. Well, you've been a PhD for a while. It didn't just happen yesterday. But we had our first beginnings back in that office on Slauson in Maine. I said, thank goodness we liked each other because we was in there back to back.
Yes, we were. Yes, we were. It was very small. It was very tight. Thank goodness for good company.
I was like, whoo, I'm glad we get along because that would have been rough. So Nosa talked about why this topic is important to her. And so I wanted to extend that same question to you. Why is abortion access an important conversation? And I know you have a public health background, and of course, also you're a nurse. So just want to kind of ask.
I mean, it's really interesting because I feel like abortion, as it is for many people, is a very personal sort of thing. And that's why it's so divisive, because people have so many different opinions on it. And those opinions are all birthed in their own experiences with life. And for me, even though I appreciate life, I think that abortion for me is my right as a woman to be able to do. And when you take that away, feels like you take away any power you ever thought that I could, ever have. And I think it felt like a bit of a slap in the face when I saw, these states taking away that power, not because I'm the one that's like, yeah, pro-life. I wish that everybody could have the baby that they wanted and desired and have the, the infrastructure and the family and the money in order to do that. Unfortunately, people just don't, which in and of itself is a different sort of topic. But right. I think the fact that a woman has the ability to choose is something that we fought so hard for, because it feels like women, even today, just aren't really even thought of. And I have my own opinions about that. When I was pregnant, I felt like people could care less. I had to walk my little self up to these places 8 months pregnant. And I felt like they just weren't giving me, in other countries, I feel like they really value their pregnant women. That whole maternal population, their children, they have laws, they have rules, they have policies that really support and protect them. Fathers can be off work for 18 months. Moms can be off work for however many months. And I feel like here it's like, yeah, you have your baby and then come back to work. We're going to give you about 6 weeks off. And it just feels like that to me is such a, I don't know. It just feels like they don't think that you're special. They don't think highly enough of you, or you are worthy or valuable enough to really consider you as a pregnant woman. So I feel like you taking away my right to have an abortion feels like another sort of notch in that same belt. Yeah, we don't really care about y'all, and that's why I think it's important to me.
Yeah, I hear you on that one for sure. So I will admit, I remember when the whole Roe v. Wade thing sort of rolled back. And I think after that, I sort of lost touch or track of the landscape of what's happening. first of all, we live in California. We still have access. We still have access if it's needed. And I also admit, I feel like for me personally, it's not an issue for me. The shop is closed for me, right? So I'm like, well, it doesn't affect me, right? But it's like that's actually not the attitude to have. But I know I'm not the only one that probably feels that way. Oh, I live in California, and also the shop is closed, so we're good. But I think it's really important that we understand the landscape of what's happening for two reasons. First and foremost, I was talking to somebody and I said, people like us, Black people, especially Black women, we cannot afford to be apolitical. We can't be, oh, well, it's not, that's over there. We need to know what's happening, because just like stuff can get overturned somewhere else, it could be us next. So, right, we can't really just afford to just be sort of ambivalent about what's happening. And yeah, so I just want to ask, and I don't know, Nomsa, if you have you probably know more than any of us. What's the current landscape? What are we looking at? What's happening? What should we be knowing about what's going on regarding abortion access?
So I would start off by saying, yes, access is available in California. And California has really committed to being a safe haven state, a state where not only we are working to make sure Californians have access, because there are areas where access is also difficult. And so being able to get it, whether it's through telehealth or other mechanisms for care. So California, it's a good thing we are in California. I was just pulling up, because I had shared, and I follow Guttmacher Institute that does a lot of reproductive health research. And so I follow them. And about 2 weeks ago, they posted a link for some of their interactive information that's highlighting abortion policies in effect as of April 25th, 2023. So currently they are a total of 13 states banning abortion across the US. So you have that, so which means you could be in a state where there's restrictions and bans, and some of it could be timing. So you now have folks having to explore their options to leave their state to go somewhere else. There's questions about legal issues related to that, right? So whether a provider in another state could have some legal issues for providing abortion, and or that individual could potentially also have things brought against them for seeking that care. So for us as an organization, my organization, Essential Access Health, we are exploring and trying to figure out ways to not only support abortion access in California, but also how can we partner across the country? California has committed millions of dollars to really support expanding access. And that is to provide, giving money to providers to provide care, expand access to care, and to support those seeking care. LA County was given $20 million to also support access and to expand abortion access, and for providers to be able to actually expand their care, since some of them are really balancing Californians coming through their doors and folks coming from outside of California to receive care.
Oh, okay. All right. So it sounds like there's been some commitment in California to ensure access and to be a safe haven for, but then there's the question of, am I going to jail as a provider for doing a thing seems to be, or the person facing repercussions. That's a little scary.
It is. And let me just add this thing. So in addition to the Roe decision and restrictions and bans, you also then have a tax on access to medication abortion, right? So folks who then will take medication, and it's easy, easier access, earlier timing. So then there's also the cases that are related to restricting or making it harder to even access medication abortion.
Okay. So
and because I'm not a clinician, I won't talk about the two pills that are used. Jamila can chime in for those, because I'm not a clinician. I try not to talk about those things.
Medication. Do you know?
Yeah, there's
Jamila?
lots
I
of
don't
different
know.
ways. There's different ways. So, I mean, it really just depends, because they can go in and do a DNC,
Right.
basically sort of clean it all out, or they can give you pills. Sometimes the pills don't actually work and they have to go in and do a DNC anyway. I actually don't know the name of those pills right off the top of my head, but I think it depends on when you are doing the abortion, like at what gestation.
Yeah. Okay.
But I did want to ask, because maybe I wasn't paying attention, which is very likely because it's Thursday, y'all.
It's Friday, Junior.
Yes. These people who are coming over to California from other states where it is banned, there are laws or restrictions placed on them? They're going to go home and have or face possible legal action?
It sounds like some states are trying to push for that, right, Nomsa?
There are some states that are exploring ways to criminalize someone that has left the state to go get abortion. And in some ways, some of the things that have been mentioned is like having, a neighbor, someone that knows you or could turn you in for that. So, I mean, so there's things, and we say that those things exist, but I also just want to say that there are still ways, and there are networks and processes that will work with folks to get them what they need and how they need to get it, right?
Yeah.
So you have abortion funds across the country that folks can reach out to, and those are really good resources to help people navigate what's available and what can be done. Because I think there's a lot of things that people will think that they can't have access to something, and in many places abortion is still available for folks, and for folks that are in states that have restrictions and bans, it's important that they understand what is available and the resources to get them to what they need. Miffy is one of the medications for medication abortion. So you have Miffy and Misteprisol. I probably pronounced that second one incorrectly because I always do, but those are the two medications that have been used for years and are safe and are used for other things, but can be used for medication abortion. There are cases going on now trying to say that Miffy is not safe. So all the science and research indicates that it is safe, and it has been used for over 2 decades, over 20 something years. And so right now, those are cases that we're still waiting for final decisions, but that is one direction folks are going in to, again, just make it harder. You could still have an abortion with just one of the medications, but it's better to be able to use both.
Oh, okay. So next question I have is, Jamila and I are the public health people. We worked in public health for some time, and of course, Nomsa, your work is public health too. But anyway, I want to try to talk through this because even for me, understanding all that I understand, I have started to see the language that abortion is a public health issue, and I'm like, yes, but in my mind, I'm like, I'm trying to talk through that. And like, wait, make it make sense for myself. And so I know even that we had, prior to us coming on air, we were trying to like, okay, wait, what is that? What do you mean? And how do we, what? So I don't know, Jamila, let's start the talk it through, and then Nomsa jump in.
Well, I was, when I hear that, in general, I understand why they think it's, why they say it's a public health issue, but I think the specifics of it are a little harder to grasp just because we are in California. So it almost feels like it doesn't affect us. But, when I was reviewing this, when I'm thinking of abortion, I'm looking at it from a lens of California, right? But abortion is a big thing around the world. And I think globally, it is a public health issue. Like the majority, I think, of abortions that are occurring, like illegally, unsafe abortions are occurring in these some of them are in developed countries, but a lot of them are occurring, like I want to say a third of them in Africa. There were some that were occurring in like Asian countries where I feel like people don't have access. And I think that's the fear here, is when you don't have access, what you end up doing is causing a complete and total health issue for women, because now you put them in unsafe conditions. Now you pose a health risk to them, because I think people don't realize all they see is a quote unquote baby, right? Which it's not, it's a fetus. But that's all they think about when they hear the word abortion. And I don't think they understand the consequences of that woman continuing with the pregnancy that may be unsafe, or, you know, maybe harmful to her, maybe place her in a situation that's going to be dangerous from her. I think a lot of people don't even realize that women are most vulnerable to physical abuse when they are pregnant. Yeah. And so that's one thing that I always like try to tell people, like, you think, yeah, having a baby is great. It is, but not everybody is in a situation where it's great for them. It can actually put their lives at risk. It can put that baby's life at risk. The other thing is it creates a reason for them to then go and have an unsafe abortion, which is really the most dangerous thing about this, because they are seeking people who are not real health professionals, people who are using dirty tools, people who don't actually even know what they're doing. You know, they just sort of found this backwater way to do this thing, and now they're doing it because people are paying. And that, I think, is really unfortunate. So that's where I can see where all of this can be a public health issue. I think one of the other things, you know, people talk about is how people use abortions for birth control. Now, I've seen this in my own experience, not often. You know, I maybe have one or two, maybe even three people that I can think of in all of my nursing where they were using this consistently as a way of birth control. But I know, Nomsa, you want to jump in and talk about that a little bit.
And before we do that, we got to go to commercial.
Okay. Let it marinate. Let it marinate.
Hold that thought.
This episode is sponsored in part by Bullet and Flight Radio. Get ready to uplift your spirit with Bullet and Flight Radio, the world's leading progressive Christian radio station. Experience the vibrant fusion of gospel house music and a rich medley of inspiration from all musical genres that'll make your heart soar. Join their extraordinary lineup of today's trailblazers, visionaries, and voices that matter, all sharing their stories and wisdom. Stay plugged in around the clock as they broadcast unmissable content 24/7. Your go-to station for all things inspiring. Become a pilot today by visiting bulletandflightradio.com. Bullet and Flight Radio. Your story, our station.
Oh, and we're back. Hey,
right, because I was jamming to the music.
So we were talking about the intersection between abortion and public health. And Jamila talked about, for me, it sounds like population, right? Because public health, first of all, just in case people that are watching are like, what are you talking about? Public health is about prevention of disease, promotion of health in populations, right? So in one instance, abortion is very much personal health care, right? One-to-one. A physician is, could be that way. but we're talking about a population, and in this case, it would be women. You talked about inequities, you talked about access to care, and those sorts of things. So, Nomsa, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add in regards to that.
So I want to do two things. You know, I've been taking notes earlier because it's like there's certain things I wanted to just make sure I said. And you know, you opened up this conversation earlier about autonomy, right? And a person's individual autonomy to make choices. And I think what's central to autonomy is someone's right to safely choose, right, whether they want to carry a pregnancy with them, right? And when we think about like where we are globally, and I am not a global expert, but globally, restrictions to abortion have been lessened over the years, right? And I'd say, you know, probably starting in the early 90s and up to now, that their countries have started to reduce some of their restrictions, and deaths come more, or the percentages are higher when abortions are illegal. And that goes to a lot of what Jamila was saying, because folks are trying to find that like underground railroad to abortion and may end up in the wrong hands. So that is when abortions become more unsafe, is when they are illegal. A smaller percentage when they are legal. And so when you think about that and you start to realize globally, outside of the United States, countries are expanding access, right? And reducing or opening up areas for folks to be able to have an abortion, whether it is to preserve the life of the mother, you know, rape, incest. If there are other issues that could be going on, meaning some, is it appropriate, Jamila? What is it?
When there's a risk to the
anomalies, a lot of things that happen. So, you know, being
risk
able
for the
to
mom or the baby, both of them.
the baby, yes. And so I think it's important that with that, what does that say about us, this country of democracy, right? Where people are supposed to have the freedom of choice and to privacy, but we are politicizing someone's decisions of what to do with their reproductive organs, and really primarily focused on individuals with a uterus who are able to reproduce, right? And so, because we're not having these same kind of conversations as it relates to men, right? And so, you know, it just calls again the question of like, who's being even intended or unintended consequences impacted by this? Is really you're looking at young folks, folks of color, poor folks, folks in rural areas, and folks who don't have access and resources to navigate healthcare, because we do not make accessing healthcare easy, for those who have insurance, and for those who don't have it or have limited access, it's even harder for them to access care. And so, you know, I know you talk about it's personal, it's one-to-one. It is personal, but sometimes it's not one-to-one. It is that woman with that husband or partner or other family members. It could be a family, you know, whether they're married or not, that still have children. And if they are struggling to make ends meet with the 2 kids they already have, as a couple, as a family, as a mom, may decide this is not going to help us get out of this slump, or this what we're trying to get out of by bringing in this additional baby. That doesn't mean that they're not good people, they're not good parents. They're thinking about the current situation that's in front of them. And if you are living from paycheck to paycheck, doing the best you can with what you have for the kids you have, I feel like it is a very courageous statement for you and that family to decide to not make it even harder for you by bringing in another child. And so, and I don't think I have the right as an individual to tell somebody
what's right for them.
Yes.
I agree with
I
that.
don't want you in my house. I don't want you in my house.
Yeah, and I see these signs at these
my waist down.
rallies talking about we'll adopt your kid, and I'm like, but you haven't
No, you
adopted
won't.
any yet. So what are you talking about? And unless you standing out there with 13 adopted kids, what are you really saying? Because even when you were just talking about that, no, I was thinking just in general of like when you find out you are pregnant and then you find out that the baby has a genetic condition that's going to, may cause some challenges for you and for that baby as they're growing up. And so what do you do with that? Do you have the right to decide what's right for somebody else? Because just because let's say, God forbid, I get pregnant and something's wrong with that child or something like that. But then,
more babies.
well, I mean, I'm just saying, what if you have to make that decision?
Right.
Like your child has whatever, and yes, all children are wonderful and beautiful. But what if you're just not in the situation to deal with that? What if you are in a situation where maybe you're separated or about to get divorced or something? How do you determine what to do with that? And I guess I'm saying, I hear what you're saying about it not being just sort of one-on-one. It does affect everyone, because then if I'm a single mom and I got this kid, I'm gonna need some help. I'm gonna need some support. And I think that's where the issue is. There's no support after people have these things.
And that's the crazy part too. It's like, but then the rest of the stuff doesn't come with it. Like, okay,
right.
well, I need food stamps, I need childcare,
and childcare needs to be reduced.
No, she talked about
daycare is expensive.
I forgot who, the paid time off and the parental
that was
leave.
me. And my child is 16 years old, and I can remember daycare being at least $800 to $1,000 a month, and that was back then. So I don't know what it is now, but I know that was ridiculous. And even if I, as a single mom, I can imagine how challenging that must be, because when they offer you like the subsidized programming, how much money do you have to make in order to qualify for that? So it's like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You're sort of stuck. And, if I want to make more money, you're going to take away my child care.
Right.
And if I don't have child care, I can't work.
Right.
So
I feel like the way this country works, and I'm getting a little irritated. I'm sorry, I'm a little hot. But, I just don't. This has been a topic for me, and I've been really irritated by a long time. I just don't feel like they really care when it comes to maternal health care. And my dissertation was on sudden infant death syndrome. So I've been looking into maternal health outcomes for a very long time. And I've always felt like the proof is in the pudding, right? You see what we do not do for our women and our children, right?
Absolutely.
We want to get there, but I just feel like it's lacking. Like you can just see in other countries where the value is there. You can see where they've put in legislation and stuff like that to show how much they value families.
Well, let's think about this. So most of, a large percentage, I won't say all of them, large percentage of folks that are anti-abortion use religion, and they talk a lot about family, right? For all the reasons of not doing this. But as a country, we are not valuing family like we should. What you just said around parental leave is a clear example. I think it's short enough for what it is for the person that has carried and delivered. I mean, think about all the talk about when we tried to get husbands or partners or spouses to be able to take parental leave, for a man to take time off. That was just like, oh, a man is not supposed to be at home taking home with his kids. He's supposed to be, at work. Or just working women who have children, and how hard it is to really try to balance that back and forth. So we don't value the things our mouth says, right? So and then think about it. Look at the people who make the decisions.
Right.
The people who are making the decisions are not, the majority of them are not folks that have the organs, the systems to carry children, but they're making decisions about those who carry children, right? So they're disconnected. If this is not something you are looking at, it's not in your backyard, it ain't about me, I ain't got to worry about it, then, you thinking about other things. And abortions are going to happen.
Right.
Legal or not, they're going to happen. It would make more sense to make sure folks have a choice, an option to safe abortion.
Absolutely.
And then I want to, if I have time, Nicole, I just want to go back to the conversation about, people using abortion as birth control. I am not going to say that nobody does that. Right. I'm not going to say that. But I will say, go back to, it is very personal. I feel like when somebody gets to a place where they are thinking about or have to decide to not continue a pregnancy when they find out they are pregnant, there's the emotions, the questions, that there's a lot that goes into that. So I say, and I think there's a small number of folks that may be using it that way. But I think we also have to understand, well, why do they use it? What are the things that create that for someone, right? That, that could be, they just don't understand what's available, what's there. It's, they don't have a regular place of care. And so it's like, well, I know if this happens, I can do this. Or it's like, what kind of lifestyle are they living, right? And, the choices that some people have to make to live. So I don't want to, for me, I'm always like, I don't want to punish people, but it's like, I want to understand, what is that about? And so how do we help those that for whatever reason, that's how they're, right. But if we're not taking everything else into consideration, because most people are not just going around having sex, getting pregnant, and be like, oh, well, I'll just go up the street to the center and have it taken care of. You know what I mean? Like, people,
I don't think that's an easy decision for any woman to make.
Not.
They think that it's just, you just go have an abortion. But I think most women who are doing that do so with the knowledge of what they really, like, what's really happening to them, and the feeling of that leaving their bodies. I don't think it's pleasant, and I don't think any woman would want to do that. Like, if they had another option, I think that they would probably choose that other option. But I think the problem is they don't have an option, and you know what I mean? Like, there is something in that situation that is not going to work for them. And I appreciate what you're saying about, like, we need to understand what's the dynamic, what is the issue where they feel like these women who are using it for birth control, why? I read it in one of the research articles I was looking at. Some of them actually did use birth control, but maybe it wasn't effective. Maybe they used it incorrectly. They didn't follow the directions, So there's a lot of things. So we just assume, they didn't use no birth control, but maybe they did, and it just didn't work, So I think there's a lot of things going on with that. My other, concern with that is just money. Nowadays, when we're talking about raising a child, what is the living wage of raising a family? Like, to me, that's a big concern, because I shouldn't have to make 6 figures in order to raise a child. Like, I just shouldn't have to, so that's an issue with everybody's not going to go to college, and I don't think everybody should or needs to. I think people need to be able to do the things that they want to do and still make money from it. But the problem is they can't. And so that's why I think people are having a hard time trying to have a family and have, children. And then on the other side of that, if they do decide to have a child and they're low income, then you got to look at people talking about them for using food stamps or for using, systems, so it's like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want me to do?
I mean, young women, there are, young women having children is reducing. People aren't having babies like they used to have babies, right? So, and then it goes back to what you just said, Jamil. It's like, what is that about? I think it's about lots of different things. It's about affordability. Mm-hmm. It's about, some folks have a hard enough time trying to take care of one single person. And so, you think about adding on to that, and just like, depending on what state you live, the cost of living, housing, just the kind of jobs you might want. It's like, bringing a child into the world is not like, what, I'm just gonna have some babies. You got to, there's
not anymore. Especially as Black people. I mean, we talked about this last time on your show, Nicole. Like, that's already it, with the shootings, mass shootings, with women trying to deliver their babies in the hospital, folks not listening to them, right? With maternal Black infant health, having poorer outcomes than everybody else. I feel like it's just a second sort of thought that you have to have when you are consider having a child. As a Black woman, if I were a single Black woman and I, found out I was having a boy, I'm like, now I have to figure out, how do I raise this boy safely? Because it's not just for 18 years, right? I have to worry about that Black boy for the rest of his life.
Yep.
And that is
Absolutely.
another thought that I feel like other people don't have in their conversations when they're talking about, abortions. We're talking about race and culture here. As a Black woman, I know that that's something that I have to think about every single day. Where am I sending this kid to school? Where's the police activity in this neighborhood? Am I going to have to, hear the, cops come to my door because something has happened? Like, that's something we have to think about. And I feel like the collective, they don't really have that thought. And that's a problem because that voice needs to be heard.
And it's so funny. I think it's ironic that even just looking at us on this screen, all three of us have only had one child. Baby, that was it. Yeah, that was it. I mean, huh?
I mean, I would love to, I would love to if that were the plan.
You young still.
Everybody on here is still young. Everybody's still young. Y'all are still young.
You are correct. However,
we don't crack.
Yes.
I accept that. However, the other parts of me are.
However, but
the eggs are like, no, baby, no. Okay, so I feel like we almost to the end. Yeah, we over time. I just want to ask one more question. This is good. Hurry up. All right. Because this is the one that comes up a lot, and it's a heavy one. So hopefully we don't take too long. Margaret Sanger, we got to have the combo. We got to talk about the eugenics movement. We got to talk about Black communities' very real fear of genocide, right? Going back to Tuskegee syphilis experiment before that. There was a research study with people talking about Flint, Michigan, and they interviewed some Black kids and they were like, it's genocide. We are always worried and concerned about why y'all trying to kill us. So I want to talk about the potential consequences of limiting access to reproductive health services, including abortion, on marginalized communities, layered over that whole conversation around eugenics. I don't know. I said a lot.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The first thing I thought about when you said that is, since we've been talking about how people will default to unsafe abortions, the problem is unsafe abortions will actually leave you infertile. Like, you will actually then not be able to have children. So if we're talking about, eugenics and all of this stuff, you have to be careful about the policies that you have surrounding abortion, because if a person is going to have an unsafe abortion, it could leave that person with some fertility issues, and then they won't be able to have children. And so that sort of, I think is an issue for me. If you're talking about having kids, people are worried that abortion is going to create, this sort of infertility when it actually doesn't. Like, I've read a lot of studies, and everything that they looked at, there was no higher risk, there was no increased, chances. But when you looked at unsafe abortions, that's when you started seeing things with pelvic inflammatory disease and severe infections and, all scar tissue because somebody didn't know what they were doing or, didn't go into the right angle. And so I think that is the conversation that I would be, looking at when we're talking about eugenics, because they think it's about going in and having an abortion and, oh yeah, they're trying to kill us. And okay. But the alternative is that when people have unsafe abortions is when it actually, like, statistically increases infertility.
Okay, I never thought about it that way. You're right. Anything else on that, Nomsa?
There's so much more I would say and could say, but I'm gonna leave it with the doctor nurse on that one.
It is a lot. I threw that. I probably should have did that one first.
Yeah, that's a whole segment.
I know,
because you can talk to people and everything that they doing, living, looking at is an affront to Black people. They're underlining. There's a a theme. They're trying to take us out. So it could be in the food you eating. It could be in the shows you watching. Like, I think that right there is a very big conversation.
It is. All right, we might have to bring that one back for next next time. All right, y'all. I guess we didn't wrap this one up. This was a good conversation. I feel like we touched on some things, but it's a lot more. I had a lot more questions. I knew this was gonna happen.
It's a hot topic.
I know. I thank you both for joining me. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching this episode of Nicole Vick Live. Make sure you catch me every Thursday here on the Pyro Media Network, 6:15 p.m. You can also find me on social media. Woo, woo, woo. I'm on the TikToks. I'm on the Instagram. I'm on the Facebook. I have a website, www.nicoledvick.com. If you need me to be a host, an MC, do a little public speaking and what the woo-de-woo, look on there and reach out, holla, And I also have 2 books. My first one, Pushing Through, Finding the Light in Every Lesson, available on Amazon, or you can go on the website and purchase it. And my journal, Push Through, 52 Weeks of Light in Tough Times. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining, and I'll see you next week. I'm going to do a recap next week, and then we'll see you here live in this format next month, every second Thursday. All right, y'all. Thank you for joining me, my co-host and my guest. Bye, everybody.
Happy Mother's Day.
Oh, yeah.
Happy
Oh, my
Mother's Day.
If you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to Pyro Media Network's YouTube channel for more awesome content. Plus, don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss when we go live or upload new videos. Visit pyromedianetwork.com today, not just to check out our incredible roster of talented creatives, but also to gain access to exclusive bonus material available only to our Pyro fam. Show your support for this Black-owned indie network by donating today. Help us keep igniting brands everywhere.